In the build-up to its release, much of the media coverage was focused on the mysterious and outright bizarre criminal history of its main star, Ezra Miller. But I think this focus on the various kidnappings, assaults, and petty thefts obscured his greatest crime against humanity, this film. You see, The Flash wasn't just a standard flop with bad writing, storytelling, sound design, cinematography, and so on and so forth, but an almost dystopian vision of the future of film. A future where film, instead of being a creative medium, becomes an imitative one, and new releases resemble AI-created recreations of good cinema that, instead of actually trying to capture new ideas, feelings, or a style, simply trawl through a database and come out with a script. In this world, comedy is not meant to be funny, but just resemble humor on paper. Likeability isn't felt by the audience, but simply exists within the confines of the film, and every central narrative spirals into an endless multiverse of nothingness. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't the deranged speech of a DC cinema fanboy. Not only does one such person not exist, but I would be foolish to expect the world from the cinematic universe that was responsible for the worst crime of the IDF to date, Wonder Woman 2. Let's be honest, outside of Batman, DC comic book films are either slightly worse than the Marvel films they're ripping off, or depressingly grim. Even the highly anticipated Justice League Director's Cut couldn't redeem the legacy of its cinema franchise within its 400-hour watch time. But Flash triumphantly burst through the boundaries of mediocrity that had long fettered DC and fell into a stinking pile of shit. At least other DC films, flawed or not, had a different feel to their Marvel counterparts. Because while they were trying to rip off Marvel, the directors, cinematographers, and writers involved had enough creative integrity to try and at least create something even a bit distinctive. But The Flash doesn't feel like a film created from a slightly unoriginal and confused concept. It feels like a film made by a committee that itself had been formed by AI. Every aspect of its content seems as artificial and poorly made as Elon Musk. The plot somehow manages to achieve the impossible and be entirely predictable and yet shockingly bad. It adopts the basic contours of a classic Spider-Man film, an awkward underdog young guy whose naivety causes them to make a choice that spirals out of control into a high-stakes showdown and is dotted with moments of lightheartedness. But it fails in the most important area, execution. As I said, the premise isn't groundbreaking, but it's been done before, by Marvel, and so even if The Flash was never going to be a masterpiece, it could have been mediocre. And yet it turned into a complete disaster for one simple reason. It went the full Marvel.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
It didn't just try to imitate the Marvel formula, it tried to exactly copy every aspect of it, from the humor to narrative structure, without the one crucial ingredient needed, Marvel. Now if you're confused by what I'm trying to say, I'll put it this way, and this is for you Americans in the audience. Imagine instead of hiring Messi, Inter Miami decided, he's pretty good in basketball, let's sign LeBron James instead. Now no one will deny LeBron is a tremendous athlete who's excelled by showing an unusual dedication to his craft. But that craft isn't football, it's basketball. And so it would make no sense to play him as a professional footballer. The same applies to The Flash. It hired writers who clearly built a career on more serious dramas or gritty DC films to construct a quintessential Marvel film, and so it essentially felt like a school project. The writers clearly had a vague idea of what Marvel felt like and its structure, so they tapped into this limited knowledge to try and exactly copy the format. But when they realized it was worse than Green Lantern, there was simply no going back. As professional writers, they could not simply pretend the dog ate it and start over again, nor could studio execs, who backed their promotions on its success and would not commit ritual seppuku like honorable men. And so The Flash was released and became one of the biggest box office bombs in superhero film history. For me, nothing exemplifies the artificial absurdity that defines The Flash more than its pale imitation of comedy. To call the light-hearted moments comedy stretches the definition so far it would make sense to Germans. It felt like desperate writers and execs were trying to convince me this was funny because their life depended on it and not because they actually believed it. And so produced lines of dialogue that felt like our future alien captives trying to understand human comedy decided to only watch The Big Bang Theory. Absorbing the comedy in this film is like taking in a whiff of delicious pastries after turning a street quarter and getting jumped. It feels kind of like they were aiming for comedy but ended up with dialogue so profoundly unfunny and artificial, it makes me wish Thanos won. Just watch this scene. Try to laugh. Really try to, and see if you can.
Aquaman? Is that like a super mermaid?
No, Albert, he's not a super mermaid. Okay, he's half Atlantean, half human with superhuman strength who can control marine life with his mind.
So like a super mermaid?
No, Albert.
That is what you described.
We'll just try Arthur Curry, Maine, Lighthouse. Here we are. Thomas Curry. That's his dad. Phone.
Hello.
Hello, Thomas Curry?
Yes.
Could I speak to Arthur? Is Arthur around?
You want to speak to my dog?
What? No, sorry. Is this Thomas Curry?
Yes.
And you work at a lighthouse?
Yes.
Okay, and your wife is the Queen of Atlantis?
Will you accept this rose?
Yes.
No.
Right, but maybe a fish-like woman washed into your life at some point or another.
Very funny, asshole.
Now I've watched this scene with the rest of you idiots, I'm actually verging on the point of insanity and literally cannot continue to talk or even think. And so for the sake of my sanity, I'm ending the video now. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this exercise in trauma bonding. If you didn't enjoy it and hate my guts because of it, I bear no hatred of you. The fact that you watched The Flash is enough for me to feel like you've been properly punished.